As I stand here tonight, I cannot help but to think of one of my favorite cartoon characters. It was Popeye the Sailor Man. And Popeye had a nemesis. He had an adversary named Brutus. Just thought he could do anything to Popeye. Put Popeye's feet in a bucket of cement, throw him in a body of water. And as Popeye was going down, he said, "I've taken all I can stand, and I can't stand no more." The reason I got in this race is because I've taken all I can stand, and I can't stand no more. Community groups together to solve tough problems, and not waiting, just doing what needs to be done. I believe we worship on Sunday, but the real work begins on Monday.
We are coming on a major election, and we need you guys to be a part of it. This not only affects our day in life or our everyday activities, but it affects the everyday life of other people. And we kind of have a job to show up at those polls. So today we have the amazing opportunity to be interviewing one of the candidates here. Today we're going to be talking to one of the 2018 Michiganians of the Year. We're going to be talking to a Northwestern High School alum and the senior pastor of Triumph Church that houses over 40,000 members. Today we're going to be talking to Reverend Solomon Kinloch Jr. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Man, I'm excited to be here.
So awesome. So, I mean, of course you're familiar with Wayne State.
Yes.
How you feel about Wayne State?
Yeah, Wayne State has always been a nucleus in our community. It has empowered so many through launching them into leadership positions. And so that's why I got into this race, because we need to continue to replicate that throughout the entire city.
Awesome. So in our first episode, one of the things that me and my co-host Loraine talked a lot about was a better Detroit. And when I say a better Detroit, we're really just talking about the future of Detroit, the future of a better Detroit, and how we get there. A lot of the things that we talked about was, the high insurance rates and how to get those down, but also the multiple abandoned houses we have here that are unused, and also the unemployment rate and how it is very low compared to the national average. But Reverend Kinloch, I wanted to know, what are your views on a better Detroit, and how do we get there?
Well, growing up on the west side of Detroit, not far from here, I grew up in extreme poverty. I grew up in a house with no running water, no operating utilities, many times had no doors or windows, covered by plastic. And so I know what it feels like to live in a city where people suggest that the city is making a renaissance and rebirth, but it has not come to your neighborhood. You don't see no evidence of it knocking at your door. And so I got into this race to ensure that no family, no child, young person feels left out and left behind. That's why for 27 years as a senior pastor of Triumph Church, I've used it not as a pedestal to promote a personality myself, but as a platform to lift an entire community of people. I haven't spent my life trying to make headlines. I've spent my life trying to make headways, trying to make sure that we're making an impact. And so that's why during COVID, we distributed thousands of laptops. That's why we delivered thousands of food boxes and meals to families, because nobody had asked me to do that. I know what it feels like to not feel as though you're being seen and you're being heard. And Detroit that I envision and that the people I speak to, the residents I speak to envision, is a Detroit that's more inclusive, a Detroit where all of us can not just live in the city, but can be a part of what's happening, what's really happening in the city.
You come from a humble beginning, and you share a story that's similar to a lot of other Detroiters, dealing with unstable housing and just not having enough money. So when through all this unstableness, this disadvantage, do you decide that following the work of ministry is what was meant for you?
Well, as a young person growing up, you know, when you have limited exposure, you have limited experiences, and it limits your expectations. So because I didn't see it, I didn't think it was possible. So there was nothing in me that even thought that it could even happen. So it limited my expectations. The church for me in our community wasn't just a building on the corner. It wasn't just a man standing in the pulpit preaching and teaching. But those institutions from the community I came from served a purpose. They were life institutions, not just spiritually speaking, theologically speaking, but also economically, politically, socially. They were on the front lines of the fight against injustices and inequity, but also against food insecurities. There were days where my family went down to those churches that were on every block and got groceries and food. We would have had anything to eat if it had not been for many of those institutions. And so when I think about the church, I don't think about the church as just a place that massages your emotional spots on the weekend. I think it as a place that is a lighthouse, that in this dark world, it's an institution that point people in the right direction. And so when I saw and sensed the real purpose of the church, that's how I found my calling and what God was calling me to do. Even as a teenager, even as a young man at an early age, I wanted to make sure that I was pouring into other people like so many poured into me.
Awesome. So, follow up with that question. It must be a big change going from pastoring and ministry over more than one church, but then also deciding to run for mayor. So, kind of what made you want to decide to run for mayor, and when did you make this decision?
Like many people, a recent poll I saw suggests that 58% of individuals surveyed and polled didn't believe that institutional politicians were taking their concerns into consideration. And so like so many people, when you look at the critical time that this city's in, it wasn't just COVID. Just think about this reality. 51%. I don't understand how we continue to do business as usual when 51% of the children in this city live in poverty, where the poverty rate is the highest it has been since 2017. It's up over 35%. When you look at the fact that violent crime in this community, while we're celebrating and having press conferences, violent crime in this community is the second highest it is in the nation. When you think about the fact that 40% of people in Detroit spend half of their income, their compensation, just keeping a roof over their head, we're at a critical time. And to say that nothing should change and that the city is coming back ought to make those of us who can see the reality of it say we can no longer just sit on the sideline and watch institutional politics fail us. We got to step up, and we got to become, in the words of another academic, Eddie Gall, that teaches at Princeton University, on his book, he said, we got to become the type of leaders that we're looking for. And if my campaign and candidacy does many things, but one important thing I hope it do, I hope it inspire the next generation that as visceral as it appears to be, the only way you can really make change is that you have to leverage the power of influence in order to make sure it happens.
So it looks like you have a real boots on the ground approach. And you're constantly in the community and you hear from all these community voices. What are these people telling you? What are something that you're hearing that needs to be fixed? And how do you plan on fixing it?
Well, getting into this race, I made it clear that I wouldn't do politics as usual. Because one of the things that we saw in this race, and people say it's because it's an open seat, but I've been living in Detroit all my life. I've never seen this many town halls. I've never seen this many forums. I've never seen, the last mayoral election, when Duggan ran, he said he wasn't doing nothing. He wasn't doing no debates with the candidate. And there's always a need to have discussion so that residents can discuss the issues, but also you need to see the metrics and the measurement on whether or not anything that you've done, any policies or practices that you've done, if it made an impact in the community. And as I'm going throughout, one of the things I wanted to make sure that we did is engage people. I can't get a vote I don't ask for. And that's exactly how I campaign. I went directly to the people to talk to the people. I have not tried to shy away from talking to anybody, but I've tried to talk to as many people as I can with a very limited time that I can. And when I look over against sometimes going into a room rather than knocking at a door, we were knocking at over 4,000 doors a day. We have a campaign now and a strategy now where that's even intensified on a whole nother level up into election day. And so when you're on the ground and you're listening, affordable housing is a priority. Crime is a priority. You can't say we're a safer city and the people in the city don't feel safe. Infrastructure, flooding is a big education, although it's not the mayor's responsibility. It is the mayor's, it is still it's not directly his job, but it's still his responsibility. And so we got to make sure we partner with the school district. Opportunities for our children, our youth, and ongoing educational opportunities and job opportunities for the people who live here. Small business empowerment, making sure that the city is more inclusive. We got a middle-class African-American flight exodus, and we need to stop and install that by making sure that people don't have to go other places to find competitive opportunities and affordable housing and quality schools. They can get that right here.
So throughout your time, and you said that you're a lifelong Detroiter, been here many years. So you often kind of you criticize a lot of the current or the city leadership. And I wanted to ask, in your eyes, what is it the current city leadership, not just the mayor, but just maybe go into the council or just anything in general, what aren't they doing?
Well,
what do you think that you can bring to the table that they don't?
Well, one of the things, I wouldn't call it necessarily criticism as much as I would call it holding people accountable for what they promised and they promote they would get done. Just like in Washington in Congress, whenever Congress passes legislation or whenever they're entertaining, or whenever they're checking and using metrics and measurement in order to see if something is effective, they have congressional hearings. They have experts come in to gauge, to share perspective. When we say we've done something, this is the reality of it, because the numbers just don't lie. When you say you've done so much good, but the reality is the majority of the children that live in this city live in poverty, how much good is that? If what you're doing, poverty is not going down, it's going up. The former President Biden gave $1 billion of ARPA money, and the president stated that it was to eradicate poverty. $1 billion came in here, and it didn't bring poverty down 1 point. It exasperated it to a new height. At the end of the day, if people sitting at the table want to take victory laps for the progress, then who's responsible for taking the responsibility and sharing the blame for the losses in our community? And the things that we could have done is just make it more inclusive by the city's own numbers, not Kinloch numbers, by the city's own numbers. And this ain't a Kinloch thing. This is a a resident thing. It's a people thing. By the city's own numbers, out of that $1 billion of ARPA money, they spend 5% of it in the community, in neighborhoods. They spend 5% in affordable housing. That's not inclusive enough. We see what's happening downtown. What I would do differently as a mayor and would have done differently as a mayor is while we're partnering with big business and big development downtown, that we hold people's feet to the fire and making sure that we have partners and allies that were willing to invest, not just in downtown, but the rest of the town as well, so that people in the rest of parts of the city can feel included.
So I want to touch a little bit on,
Yes.
on that ARPA money.
Yes.
Like you said, for those who don't know, ARPA money was money that was given to us during the time that we went for COVID, just to help with our city and everything like that. But in 2026, these funds dry up, and these funds have been beneficial to our city. But like I said, they dry up. So what's the plan? What's the plan going on forward? I know you might say that they haven't been as beneficial as they should be.
Well, I'm not saying they have not been beneficial to who the administration decided to make the dollars beneficial to. What I'm saying is that we have not seen enough of those dollars penetrate in the inner city. And that's not a Kinloch thing. You asked me earlier, why did I get into the race? It's because I have a unique position where I get to hear from the people they not taken into consideration. When a poll is taken, many times when you see polls taken in our community, they're not surveying us at the end of the day. They're surveying the most likely voters, the most engaged individual. Well, the question becomes, why are the majority of the people in the city not engaged? Because the majority of the children in the city and families in the city are operating below the poverty line or at that line. And at some point, we got to make sure that we engaging those individuals. That money is not there, but Detroit still has access to resources. And when you start talking about a $3 billion budget, although half is restricted, it's still about prioritization. Budget is about how do you prioritize. And we have to make sure that as we're submitting budget to City Council, that we're making sure that we are prioritizing people in those budgets as well.
So I want to go more into your unique position that you have here. You're more of a political outsider coming from the church, coming from the city. And a lot of things that go on in the mayor's seat is a lot of policies, a lot of passing different policies and building them. I mean, well, how would you say to all the criticism out there that you might run into trouble and things like that if elected, based on your experience just being rather the church? The political side of things.
I like that question. It's amazing to me that the same people who for 27 years have come for my counsel and my support and my wisdom and judgment are now saying I'm a political novice, because I can share, and there's multitudinous instances where those same individuals that say he's outsider now have been saying for 27 years he's one of the greatest community leaders and voices of our particular time. The only reason it's becoming a discussion now is because we are saying whatever you've been doing, your experience sitting at that seat has not changed our experience. Listen, the City Council is the legislative body in the city of Detroit. If I'm inexperienced, then what does it mean? Then that means that we've been negligent. If you are experienced and you sitting at the table and you've sought to do nothing different to make sure that the numbers go in a way that benefits the residents and not continue to go in a way that brings harm and hurt to the citizens that put you in that seat. When you're seated at the City Council table, that's the legislative authority of the municipality. The City Council create ordinances. City Council create legislation. At the end of the day, your real check and balance is when the administration presents a budget to you. when you're going through the budgetary process, you have the capacity at that moment to wield real influence, to say, listen, this administration is not being inclusive enough. So that's the check and balances of any administration. The mayor administrates and executes, but city balance creates. So if a person from city council says, I want to be mayor because I want to do all of these things, you're in a seat right now in order to do it. Look at the things that I've done, and I'm not an elected official. And the only reason as a private citizen I had to do what I was doing is because of many people in institutional politics has failed to. Am I suggesting that all politicians have not done good? No. Am I suggesting that they have not been good things? No, I'm not suggesting that they have not been good things, but they have not gone deep enough and they have not gone wide enough. And a Kinloch administration would make sure it goes deeper and it goes wider.
So another thing I'd like to talk to you about is the job market and why it's so important. But it's kind of the whole reason why we're here. You know, we're here at Wayne State and the other students are here at college to get that job that they hope and dream for. But unfortunately, there's a lot of students here who have quality resumes, but are not able to find a job. And that might be whether because this job market is so competitive or the scarcity of jobs in here. But it also leads into the flight of talent that Detroit has.
Yes.
Constantly, each year we see talented Detroiters that come out of college or come just talented Detroiters in general often leave the city of Detroit because they found pay where the city of Detroit was not competitive enough to pay for it. So my question for you, Reverend Kinloch, is how do we get past this? And do we possibly see any incentives for small businesses or maybe even big businesses to continue hiring out of Detroit-based universities?
Well, and that's my motivation. That's always been my motivation, to leverage your influence in order to make sure that you cast a wider net. I'm the only one in this race that has built an institution that even employs people. I'm the only one that has CEO experience, that has led a large organization. My opponent has never led a large organization. You can't call leadership sitting at the table rubber stamping what's put in front of you. At the end of the day, you can be an executive and never have leadership experience. Leadership experience comes from learning, maturing, and developing. And I've been able to do that over the last 27 years. But one of the ways that I would approach it is, number one, we got to take care of the people that's already doing the work. When you look at the fact that more than 40 unions still don't have a contract at the end of the day, you got to first of all, you got to start with taking care of the people that's already doing the work. Secondly, you got to give them competitive pay so that Detroit is not just a pass-through staffing agency where people come here to get the experience and then go on somewhere else in order to get competitive pay. And so we got to treat the people who've done the work and who are doing the work more equitable. The other thing is we got to right some wrongs that we've done in the past. When we went through bankruptcy and financial oversight, a lot of people lost pensions, and they're still reeling from the loss of income and resources and benefits. And there has to be some strategic plan in order to right those wrongs. No, do we have a blank check that we can write and give them their money back? No, but you're telling me we're gonna do more than the 13th, we ain't gonna do more than the 13th check at the end of the day. And you got individuals sitting at the city council that's cutting people's pay, but they're increasing their own. That's not equitable and fair. How do we increase job opportunity? We got 38,000 small businesses in the city of Detroit. Just imagine if the same resources and benefits we give to big businesses and big development, we take those tax abatements and tax credits and we use those opportunities to incentivize hiring locally and local hires. Just imagine if each one of those businesses hire one person apiece. That's 38,000 jobs. That's one of the largest job growths that we've seen in recent areas. We have to, increase the access to the industries that we already got in the city, but we also got to lure industries that are attractive, new markets that are attractive, new interests that are attractive in the city, to make sure that the people that come out of wonderful institutions like this don't have to go somewhere else to explore those opportunities. They can do it right here.
Yeah. One thing I want to touch is one of your first 100-day plans, and that is starting a strike force to get 10,000 affordable housing. But we've kind of seen initiatives in Detroit that try and cater to the affordable housing market or cater to affordable housing. So my question to you is, how will your plan be any different than some of the other acts?
Well, Johnathan, first I would need to know some context of that, because when people say that, I'm trying to figure out where and when. When somebody says, the only place that's coming from is my opponent. Nobody was talking about affordable housing before I got into this. If they're talking about my inexperience and me being a political outsider, which is a bunch of hogwash. At the end of the day, my whole plan was hijacked by my opponent. When you go back and look at media and look at interviews, nobody was even talking about the food desert in this city. Community groups were, residents were, stakeholders in the community. But when you start talking about on the campaign trail, these were not hot buttons until I made my launch in February at the Fox Theater. And so then they start talking about, oh, we already doing what he talking about. We built $1.5 billion, $1.5 billion in affordable housing. Where did you build it at? If the median income in this city is less than $40,000 a year, how can you say that you're building affordable housing when the people in the city, when 40 and 50% of the people in this city are using half of their resources right now in order to keep a roof over their head? That's just not true. We have not done enough in affordable housing to make sure we're building houses that people can afford to buy. We have not done enough to make sure we move the obstacles, which is down payment. Down payment is a tremendous obstacle to putting people on a path to home ownership. And we have to do a better job than that. But more importantly, we have to make it easier for developers who are interested in doing affordable housing development to be able to get through the permitting process in the city of Detroit. And we got to make sure that we're leveraging our relationship with financial institutions so that we can create low interest loans and more incentives for people to find it even more attractive. But the largest thing is we have to come up with an economical model, like Tobias Harris and Brinker with their partnership with Kresge, coming up with an economical model in order to build a home that's not so overpriced, that's a module that can be built at an economic price and be sold to individuals with subsidies that puts them on a path where they can really afford it. If the goal is to make sure that you have a model that people can afford, then we cannot say we've done a great job in that area.
You talked about food deserts. I want to ask about that as well. What are the plans to fix the food desert and these grocery disparities?
Well, the Grocery Association understands that there's opportunity to make sure when you look at the dis-ease and disease that plagues our community, whether it's high blood pressure, heart disease, and so diabetes, and so many other things. This is not just something that's needed and desired. It's an essential to the quality of life and health for every resident in the city. And so what we would do is continue to work with Grocers Association to expand leadership and mentoring opportunities for people who want to go into business. We would also increase the food sovereignty network in order to be able to expand on our food co-op programs in order to make sure that we're able to produce our urban farming opportunities, to make sure we produce, and making sure we're leveraging the health education in our community about how to prepare and what the need is to have a nutritious meal and how to prepare it, and letting them know the value and understanding of it. We got to do much more than just talk it. We got to walk it, whether that's stationary or whether we start off with it being fluid and transient. We just have to make sure that we make goods and services available to our community. And that's something that Triumph Church, when you look at the last 27 years, we've been doing. As a 24-year-old young man pastoring, one of the first things I saw in the community is a lack of food. And I opened up a pantry 27 years ago because I know what it feels like to be hungry. When you ain't never felt that way, you don't think it's urgent, but I know what that feels like.
So, I mean, I kind of want to go back into a little bit more about Triumph Church. Say that the opportunity does arise and you do become the mayor. How would you balance the obligations of the city of Detroit and the obligations of the Triumph Church?
Well, being the mayor and being the pastor of the church demands the same thing. One is a great team. I could not have built Triumph Church by myself, and I could not sustain it by myself and operate it by myself. It takes a team of people. It's an institution more than 105 years old, so it's bigger than me. And it's not just my job as a leader to make sure it survives as long as I'm alive. It's my responsibility to put things in place to make sure it can continue to thrive long after I'm gone. And so you do that with a team, and we already have a team in place. And the mayor does not run the city by himself. No matter how great of a mayor we've had in the city of Detroit, none of them have done it alone, and no mayor will be able to do it alone. You will continue to do it with a great team that you put in place. And it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody that's in place need to leave because you're transitioning in a mayor. We have some great people and gifted people already working in administration. And we want to continue to give those an opportunity. We want to continue to do that. But also we want to make it attractive and inclusive so that it represents the whole city and not just part of the city.
Yeah, so you talked a little bit about evaluation.
Yes.
And I'm kind of curious, in your first 100 days, one of your first day initiatives, you plan to do an evaluation of our current administration. And what do you mean by evaluation? Do you plan on replacing some of the people that's in there, or things of that nature? Or is there a specific field that maybe you're not looking forward to evaluating, but you believe needs some evaluation?
Well, we would want to go in and say is, okay, what are the goals? What are the objectives? How well do you think you've done in those areas? What are some of the things you tried? What are the things you didn't try? And why didn't you try them if you wanted to try them? And then give an opportunity to say, what things you would keep the same, what things you would change, and how those measure up to what we believe that the people in this city want the direction of this city to go. One of the things I wanted to be careful of, because I'm not an institutional politician, we need to be careful of that, is on a campaign, you're a candidate, you're not the mayor. And so you're not supposed to be making promises and bartering in exchange. That's what has led to so many corruption. At the end of the day, what you're doing is selling the vision, because the moment you get in there and look up under the hood, that's how you get people on one side say one thing, and then they get in office, and then all of a sudden it becomes something different because they say, well, I didn't have all of the information. What we are promising for the citizens of this city is that we will take an accurate assessment and be honest to say this is where we are, and work with the community, because it cannot be a me administration. It has to be a we administration. We will work with the community and partner with the community in conversation so we can create a Detroit and imagine a Detroit that works for us all.
Another thing I want to talk to you about that the youth of Detroit faces a lot is voter turnout rate.
Yes.
Our students, not even our students, but just the young people of Detroit don't go out and vote. And it's constantly left to the age group along the 60 and 70-year-olds to show up at the polls and make the decision, our decision, for the future. So, I mean, I wanted to ask you, Reverend Kinloch, how do we fix this? How would you encourage more young people to go out and vote?
Well, you know, we know it has been intentional. The lower the voter turnout, the more it benefits the establishment and it benefits the status quo. At the end of the day, when was the last time, probably since Obama, that you saw a real get out the vote campaign? At the end of the day, when was the last time somebody came to talk to you about getting engaged on a municipal level with the intensity that I grew up with? I grew up at a time where, you know, you didn't vote or participate in the process. I remember as a teenager sitting on the pulpit of New Bethel Church, and, you know, we knew Coleman Alexander Young was going to be the mayor. He had been the mayor for decades. So we knew he was going to be the mayor. But every election was still a rah-rah moment. And it was a rah-rah moment to keep people engaged and to keep the community engaged. We haven't seen that type of grassroots energy in a long time. And we got to get back to that. That's what my candidacy has sought to do, is to engage not just the 10, the 12, or the 13%, but the 80%. The reason the 80% is checking out in many instances in local elections and more is because we're not engaging them. When you talk to the average political consultant and they come into a room and tell you how to win an election, they're not telling you to go after the least of less propensity voters. They're telling you to go after the high propensity voters. That's what most consultants, they're going to tell you it's too expensive, it's too extraneous to go after. But at the end of the day, not talking to them leaves more than 80% of the people out of the conversation. And so if we want to change that, we got to change how we engage. Like people say, oh, well, Pastor, you didn't come to this and you didn't come to that. You didn't talk to this and talk to that. Every day of this campaign, I've been talking to thousands of people. At the end of the day, if we're going to engage not just the people who are already engaged, if we're going to reignite a passion in this community, we're going to have to start casting a wider net. And we're going to have to start on campuses like this. We're going to have to continue in homes and the senior complexes and other places. But not just in the senior complexes, because everybody's vying to get in the senior complexes. We're going to have to start going door to door. And that's what we've been doing.
Well, as we conclude, I wanted to ask, how has Detroit impacted you? And how would you like to live impact Detroit in the future?
All of who I am is because of Detroit. I came up in a city where I wasn't supposed to be nothing, as some would say, and wasn't supposed to amount to anything. And Detroit didn't just give me a sense of identity. They gave me a sense of purpose. And that's what I have sought to do for as many people as I can. I mean, to be a 24-year-old boy, inexperienced, made mistakes on the streets of Detroit, and for a group of people who were old enough to be my mother and father, in most instances, my grandparents, to give me an opportunity and let me lead and pastor in a way that was much different than anything they had seen, was something that I could never put a price on or attach a worth to. And so what I've sought to do my entire life is give that same opportunity of redemption to as many people as I can. I did not get in this race to tear anybody down. I got in this race to say that while we're lifting some, make sure that we're building enough ladders to lift other people. I got into it being hopefully optimistic, but not surprised. I wanted me and my opponents to be able to show opposite policies and platforms without seeing ourselves as an enemy. And people are saying, oh, Reverend, you're aggressive now. In February, I wasn't aggressive. A week after I launched my campaign, and they attacked me with taxes. I wasn't aggressive 2 months after that when they came up and attacked me with something else. And they used the same surrogate. 3 months later, they attacked me with something else. 4 months. This is about policy. In the campaigns like this, you don't want to get distracted. You want to make sure that you keep the main thing the main thing. And the main thing is this, that we're not trying to take nobody else's chair away from the table. I'm not the boogeyman in the room. What I'm just saying is it's about time that we add as many chairs to the table as we can to make sure that the people in this city feel a part of what's going on. And if nothing else, up until that point, I think I've shined a great light on that.
And how would you like to impact Detroit when it's all said and done?
I want to continue to do in the mayoral office what I've done as a community leader and as a pastor. Make sure that we make the economy more inclusive, that Detroit is a city where families and our youth can not only survive, but they can thrive by being able to expand opportunities, increase job growth, make sure that we bridge the income inequity, making sure that we improve reliable transportation, making sure that we give people access to a quality education, safe, real safe streets where seniors can have dignity and a peace of mind, and making sure that investment is not lopsided, where it's just going on downtown and we don't see it happening in the rest of the town. But more importantly, making sure the residents in this city know that they got somebody sitting in that seat, that when their door closed, or when that door closed, they'll always know that somebody's in that room looking out for us.
Awesome. And then 3 words, how would you describe Detroit?
The best city.
Well, those are 3 words. Well, we really appreciate you coming on today, Reverend Kinloch. And thank you all for listening. But we hope that you do more than listen. We hope that you go out and vote. We hope that you go out and vote on November 4th, because your vote is important to the betterment of Detroit, the Detroit that I have in mind, the Detroit that Reverend Kinloch has in mind, but most especially the Detroit that you have in mind. It's only one way to get there, and that's at the polls. So once again, thank you guys so much for listening. My name is Johnathan Shephard. This is the South End Podcast, and we hope to see you guys